Picture this scenario. It's Friday afternoon. You just got paid. You log into your banking app, and you see that direct deposit hit, and you do what you've been taught is the responsible thing. Here, you open your savings account. You transfer $1,500 from checking to savings. You watch the little animation happen, and you feel that hit, for that little jolt of pride. You are a saver. You are disciplined. Your balance in that high-yield savings account is now $70.420, 2.2 cents. If you look at that number, you feel secure. You feel safe. You think, just a little bit more. Just get to 100,000, and then you'll be ready. And you can start really building wealth. This is the dream you were sold, the responsible path, the good financial citizen. But what if I told you that every single time you make that transfer, you aren't building wealth, you're digging a hole? But what if I told you that the system applauds your saving, not because it's smart for you, but because it's incredibly profitable for them? But what if I told you that your $74,000 isn't making you rich, it's actively making you poor? This isn't just bad math. This is a wealth diversion scheme disguised as prudence. My name is Bobby, and I spend way too much time thinking about why smart, hardworking people feel so financially stuck. If you're someone who watches your savings account grow, but your net worth stays flat, or if you feel like you're running on a treadmill of responsibility but getting nowhere, or if you've ever looked at your bank balance and thought, is this all there is? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we aren't talking about budgeting harder or finding a better savings rate. We are talking about the single biggest lie in personal finance. We're talking about why saving keeps you poor. Here's the thing about building wealth. Conventional wisdom tells you that cash is king, that debt is dangerous, and that the pinnacle of financial success is a big, fat, growing number in a savings account. They tell you to hoard your dollars, avoid risk, and wait until you have enough to start. But that advice ignores a fundamental, brutal truth about our financial system. It ignores inflation, taxes, and a concept so powerful it's the bedrock of modern fortunes. It ignores the Asset Liability Paradox. Let me tell you a story. It's 1921, Weimar, Germany. The nation is bankrupt from war reparations. In a small town, there are two men. The first is a school teacher named Heinrich. He is cautious, responsible, he receives his salary, and, terrified of the instability he sees, he does the smart thing. He converts almost all of his paper marks into gold coins, the ultimate savings, and he buries them in his backyard. He feels secure. He has tangible, real savings. The second man is an opportunist named Klaus. He sees the same chaos, but he draws a different conclusion. He goes to the bank and he takes out the largest loan he can possibly get in the rapidly depreciating paper mark. He doesn't save it, he uses it to buy a struggling brick factory from a desperate owner. The printing presses run day and night. Hyperinflation explodes. The price of a loaf of bread goes from 1 mark to 100 marks to 1 trillion marks. Heinrich digs up a single gold coin. It's still a gold coin, but now it can buy him a single loaf. His life savings, his prudence, has been vaporized by the invisible tax of a collapsing currency. Meanwhile, Klaus works at his factory. The bricks his factory produces are still bricks. They have real value. And the debt he took out to buy the factory, that he pays it back with bricks sold for the new hyperinflated currency. The real value of that debt, the burden of it, melts away to nothing. The responsible saver is wiped out. The reckless debtor becomes an industrial baron. The lesson isn't about hyperinflation, it's about the nature of claims. The saver holds a claim on a decaying form of money. The asset holder owns a claim on real productive capacity, and he finances it with a liability that decays. That is the historical lesson of the Asset Liability Paradox. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Bobby, that's a dramatic story about 1920s Germany, but how does that apply to my actual life in 25? Well, look around you. This dynamic is everywhere, just in slow motion. Let's take a detailed example. Meet Sarah. Sarah is a software engineer making $120,000 a year. She's diligent. She saves $3,000 every single month. She has $150,000 sitting in her high-yield savings account earning 4.5%. Behavior. She looks at that number and feels a deep sense of accomplishment. She's following all the rules. Now, let's walk through the logic. The Federal Reserve targets an average inflation rate of 2%. But let's be real. The real inflation on things you actually buy, like housing, healthcare, and education, is closer to 4 or 5%. Let's use a conservative 3.2%. So Sarah's nominal return is 4.5, but her real return after inflation is just 1.3%. On $150,000, that's $1,950 of real growth per year. But we're not done. She pays taxes on that interest. The IRS doesn't care about inflation. She pays ordinary income tax on the full 4.5%. That's $6,750 in interest. At her 24% marginal tax rate, that's $1,620 she owes. Her post-tax, post-inflation real gain is $1,950 minus $1,620. Her $1,000 after a year of extreme discipline has the purchasing power of about $150,350. Gain of $330. Meanwhile, her colleague Alex takes his $150,000 and uses it as a 20% down payment on a $750,000 rental property. He gets a 6.5% mortgage. The rent covers the mortgage and expenses. He gets depreciation deductions that shield the rental income from tax. The behavior intelligence game is based on the appreciation of the entire $750,000 asset, not just his $150,000. His debt is fixed in nominal dollars, but the rent and the property value rise with inflation. Sarah traded real asset growth for psychological comfort. Another example? A family saving $50,000 in cash over 5 years for a car versus a family financing a $35,000 car at 3% and investing the other $15,000. That math always favors the asset side. This is what we call asterisk, the liquidity illusion asterisk, the false comfort of cash that systematically destroys your future purchasing power. Let's perform a brutal audit of Sarah's strategy. Let's call it the true cost of cash over 5 years. Sarah starts with $150,000 in savings, earning 4.5% APY, which she saves $3,000 a month. Looks great, right? First, there's the inflation tax. At 3.2% average annual inflation, her money is a melting ice cube. Of year .1, $150,000 times 3.2% equals $4,000. $800 lost to inflation. The real value of her cash pile is now $145,000. That's the easy math. We all know inflation is a thing. Now we have to subtract the opportunity cost. This is the return she didn't get by choosing cash over a simple low-cost S&P 500 index fund. Historical, long-term nominal return is about 10%. The spread between cash and the market is 5.5%. So 150,000 times 5.5% equals $8,250 of foregone growth in year 1. Her shadow portfolio is now $8,250 smaller than it could be. But we're not done. Then there's the tax drag. She pays ordinary income tax on her interest. He already calculated that at $1,620. So her real after-tax value after 1 year is $145,200 plus her after-tax interest of $5,130. That's $150,330 real dollars. And it gets worse. We have to compound this over 5 years. Her path. $150,000 growing at a real rate of 1.3% for 5 years is approximately $160,000 in future purchasing power. Of $150,000 growing at a real rate of 7%, that's 10% nominal minus 3% inflation for 5 years is approximately $210,382. So let's add it up. $210,382. One more $160,000 equals $50,382. That's not a typo. Sarah's responsible saving habit didn't make her $34,000. It cost her $50,382 in future purchasing power over just 5 years. That's a down payment on a house. That's financial freedom speed. Think about that for a second. And we haven't even touched on the broader data. According to the Federal Reserve's 2022 Survey of Consumer Finances, the median net worth of middle-class families who are primarily savers is $93,000. preferred permission permit. It's 1.9 million. Behavior A 2019 study published in the Journal of Finance by researchers Gomes and Michaelides found that excessive cash holdings, what they call precautionary savings beyond a reasonable emergency fund, was the single largest drag on household wealth accumulation, accounting for a larger loss than poor stock market timing or high fees. The AIG data book for 22% shows that taxpayers with over $1 million in income report more mortgage interest and investment interest expense. They have more strategic debt than the bottom 90% of taxpayers combined. Our business means the wealth gap isn't about income, it's about the financial operating system you use. And before you say, but the market is risky, a 2023 analysis by Vanguard showed that over any rolling 20-year period in the last century, 100% cash portfolio had a 100% probability of being outperformed by a balanced 60-40 stock bond portfolio, usually by a factor of 3 to 1. That's the equivalent of choosing to walk across the country instead of taking a plane because you're afraid of flying. This is where it gets really interesting. A behavior, when you prioritize saving cash above all else, you miss the compounding growth of assets, but watching assets rise while you hold cash creates a desperate fear of missing out. That FOMO either forces you to save even more frantically, locking you deeper into the cash trap, or it forces you to jump into speculative bubbles late, often losing money. Save then speculate cycle makes your overall position more fragile. It's like being a farmer who spends all his time polishing his seeds, admiring them, keeping them safe in a vault. He feels secure looking at his full vault, but outside, his neighbor is planting seeds in the ground, dealing with weather and pests. But year after year, his harvest grows. The polished seeds look perfect, but they feed no one. And here's what really gets me. The commercial banking system relies on this. They profit on the spread between what they pay you, 4.5%, and what they lend it out for, 6% on mortgages, 15% on personal loans. They count on you seeing your savings account as the finish line. They depend on your fear, your liquidity preference. They literally budget for your financial ignorance. When you start moving your money from their low-yield savings products into assets, you become a bad customer for their profit model, but you become the best CFO your life will ever have. The system wants you hyper-focused on your interest rate, arguing over 4.5 versus 4.6% APY, because that distracts you from your asset allocation. This isn't just bad personal finance advice, this is a wealth diversion scheme. Now, I can hear the objections already. Bobby, debt is risky. What if I lose my job? I can't sleep at night with debt hanging over me. And look, I get it. That seems reasonable. Consumer debt, debt on cars, credit cards for vacations, furniture financing is toxic if you're of a new suspender. But we're talking about productive, asset-backed debt, a mortgage on a property that generates rent, a business loan for equipment that produces income. This isn't a burden, it's a lever. You manage the risk with cash reserves and cash flow, not by avoiding leverage entirely. You might also be thinking, the market is at an all-time high. I'm waiting for a crash to buy in. The data is brutal on this. A Fidelity study in 2021 analyzed investor accounts and found that the investors who performed the best were either dead or had forgotten they had an account. Time in the market beats timing the market. The savings waiting room has cost ordinary investors more money than every single market crash in history combined. The problem isn't debt. The problem is what the debt is financing. The goal isn't to be debt-free. The goal is to be asset-rich. So what do you actually do with this information? How do you escape the trap? Let me give you something practical. Strategy number 1, the liquidity ladder. This is a tiered system that gives every dollar a job and a timeline. Behavior. It works because it kills the all-or-nothing mentality and provides security while forcing deployment. Here's how to implement it. Tier 1 is your checking account. Keep $2,000 for daily operations. Tier 2 is your true emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of essential expenses in a high-yield savings account. This is your sleep-at-night money. Never touch it. Never question it. Tier 3 is the launch pad. Any cash that accumulates above your Tier 2 cap has a 90-day mission. It is either for a known, near-term expense like property taxes, or it is automatically scheduled to be deployed into a predefined investment within 90 days. Example, you get a $5,000 bonus. Tier 2 is full. You immediately schedule a transfer to your brokerage. That money now has an expiration date in the cash system. Here's strategy number 2, the debt audit. Take every liability you have and categorize it as either productive or consumptive. Productive debt finances an income-producing or appreciating asset, a rental property mortgage, a business loan. A consumptive debt finances a depreciating item, a car loan, credit card debt for a TV. Your action is simple. Aggressively annihilate all consumptive debt, strategically manage, and even consider acquiring productive debt. This changes debt from a scary monster into an analytical tool. Strategy number 3, the cash flow conversion. Take a small defined amount of your overgrown savings, say $5,000, and convert it into a single, small income-producing asset. Use it to buy a dividend-focused stock portfolio or a single share of a rental property fund like Arrived Homes or a peer-to-peer lending note. The goal isn't the return. The goal is to build the muscle of being an asset owner, of receiving a small dividend or interest payment that didn't come from your labor. The biggest shift is psychological. You have to start asking, what can this money do? Instead of where can this money hide? You're not measured by your savings account balance. You're measured by your productive asset income. Here's what I want you to do this weekend. Open a brokerage account if you don't have one. Then look at your total savings. If it's more than 6 months of essential expenses, calculate the excess. Schedule a transfer for 20% of that excess into the new account. Don't invest it yet. Just get it out of the savings ecosystem. You'll discover the biggest barrier is moving it, not investing it. Break that barrier. I want to leave you with one final thought. Wealth isn't really about money. It's about options. It's about freedom and time. We thought security was a vault full of cash, but the reality is that security is a machine that prints cash while you sleep. Our grandparents lived in a world of gold-backed currency and pensions. Saving $1 meant saving a claim on a fixed resource. We traded that for a world of fiat currency and 401. The people who actually thrive today aren't the best savers. They are the best allocators of capital and risk. They understand that in a system designed to incentivize investment and spending, prudent, calculated risk is the only path to real preservation. You can't save your way to wealth in this system, but you can invest and strategically leverage your way there. You're not broken for feeling proud of your savings account. You're human, responding to decades of conditioning. This journey is unfair because you have to unlearn what felt safe, but once you understand that true safety comes from owning income-producing assets, not from hoarding depreciating dollars, you can break the cycle. Referring how you see your life's work sitting in a bank. Share this with one friend who is a great saver but feels stuck. Smash that like button and hit subscribe for more content that challenges how you think about money and behavior. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.